First Baptist.
We're going to get started now. Thank you for coming. Come on in, find a seat. This is so encouraging for our second meeting to have such a great turnout. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all the hard work you've been doing to spread the word and all the volunteers that showed up to help with Pelican Fest. That was a huge undertaking for such a young chapter, and we did great. We made an incredible impact on our community and made a lot of friends, and we grew our flock. So thank you again. Can I get a motion to call this meeting to order? Second, from one of our members. Thank you, Rex. Did you get that, Rex? Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, very quickly, because we want to give our guest speaker as much time as possible, is just approve our minutes from the last meeting. So if I can get a motion to approve our minutes.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. What is your name, sir?
Bill Reese.
Bill
Bill.
Reese.
R-E-E-S-E.
Quickest business ever. All right, and if I can get a motion to approve our treasurer's report.
Aye. Yes.
Thank you, Kay.
Kay.
All right. And so for both of those, all yays, no nays. Sorry, I normally don't go through it this quickly, but we have a lot to cover today. So, okay, so to my notes. Okay, first thing that I want to cover is Christmas bird count. Christmas bird count is the biggest community science project involving birds between National Audubon Society, Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and Colorado State University. It has been difficult to get recertified in this area to participate in Christmas bird count, but through the efforts of one of our board members, Kay Robbins, we have been able to do that. Can you raise your hand, Kay? I'll stand on it. So Kay is our point person for Christmas bird count. Christmas bird count takes a 15-mile radius using City Center in Grove. I think 3rd and Main is what we used. And we are going to go out on the 17th in groups and count as many birds in that area as possible. If you have already signed up for Christmas bird count, then she's got your information. If not, I'm going to pass this around. You do not have to be an experienced birder to participate in this, because we will pair you with people more experienced than you. It's also a lot of fun. You get to meet people. You're seeing what birds are in your area, and why this is important is because all that data goes into a system where we start learning where birds are at, where birds aren't at anymore, and why. So it's the biggest community science project that you could become involved in this area. And like I said, we're super excited. So as that goes around, sign up for it if you're interested. Kay's email's on there if you want to take a picture of the sign-in form. Second thing I'm going to send around. One of our members, Shauna McWaters, owns Grand Lake Cruises. For our members, she's offering 2 different cruises, one on the 17th and one on the 19th for $50 a ticket, and it's an evening Pelican cruise. And
What month are you talking about?
this month, it's right now for the Pelicans. And Sandy, where are the Pelicans spotted?
You're on the west side of Sailboat Bridge. There's about
Yes.
a flock of birds playing with the cormorants out there.
Yes, so there's only 6 seats per day for this. So if you are interested, you can reach out to Shauna. You can pay by Venmo. I've got it on her clipboard. We're not handling money. She's just offering this discount to our members. So I'm going to send this around as well. Tomorrow, we have our first birdability training. And for those of you that don't know what birdability is, it is a crowdsourced map that people can go and look at all the places that they want to experience nature and possibly go birding. And they can find out, is it accessible and safe for them? We're not just talking mobility, we're talking, there's an array of different things. You might find yourself on the spectrum where direct light is gonna bother you. You might have to stop and rest at certain, you might need a park bench every so many feet for you to rest. You might have equipment that would run out of battery life if the trail was too long. You might have a child that has sensory issues where loud sounds are gonna upset them. So birdability is a place where you can go and instead of just seeing, oh, it's ADA compliant, which means there's a parking spot and maybe handhelds in the bathroom, this is different. It's a comprehensive survey that someone can go and find out, is it really accessible and safe for them and their loved one and their friends to experience nature. So we're doing a training tomorrow at Bernie State Park at 9 a.m. We'll do it as a group so we can all kind of see what's required on the surveys, and then at the end, you go out to as many places as you can, as often, because things change in different parks and situations. And we're gonna put those areas on the map, because right now, you pull up the state of Oklahoma, there's nothing there. Which means people that are coming into our area, we're a tourist area, who maybe are utilizing that home state, there's no coverage here, so we wanna change that. At the same time that we're doing birdability tomorrow, we're also gonna be looking at 26 bluebird boxes that our chapter has committed to monitor on a monthly basis for Bernie State Park. So since I'll have you there for birdability, I'm gonna do the bluebird box training as well. Your chair for birdability is our secretary, Charlene Pata. She will be there too.
I am the captain.
And also Kyra Fleming, who happens to be on vacation. Today, we need to exit the library at noon because they close. So we don't really linger after the meetings as much as we'd like to. However, November's meeting, which is on the 9th, the second Saturday, is gonna be held at Harbor Village. They're not gonna be open to the public, it's just gonna be for us. We're gonna have a very relaxed meeting. We're gonna approve our bylaws, get a little bit of business done. I might talk about community science, but it's gonna be a potluck where we can all get to know other members of our flock.
Did you say 9 a.m.?
No, on the 9th,
Oh, the night, that's
it's gonna be the same time. It'll be at 10:30, but we will not have to leave. We'll go, we'll do our club business, and then we're gonna go and we're gonna get to know one another. We're gonna become cohesive. We're gonna find out we have a lot in common with each other. And, you know, as you grow a flock, I mean, what do flocks do? You know, they migrate together, they do this together, and that's what we wanna do. We wanna get to know our neighbors here. So at this point, I'm gonna turn, oh, one more thing. I will be shipping off to you if you've signed up, if you're on our email list, online form you can sign up to bring a dish. And that way you'll see what, you know, we don't need 9 people bringing cookies. You'll be able to see on the list who's signing up for what. So watch your email for that. And at this point, I think I'm gonna turn it over to Alan to introduce our guest speaker. And for those of you, this is Alan Glenn, our board member. And he's lined us up with another wonderful educator.
You bet. I see a lot of returning faces from last month, which is good. Thank you for coming back. Liz Comedo runs Morningstar Wildlife Rehab Center, and she is a retired ecology teacher from Rogers High School. Many times I would go to, especially in the spring, she used to do mammals and birds. Now she's doing just birds, but many times I would go to her classroom in the spring especially. Half of her students would be feeding birds, and half of them would be feeding opossums or raccoons. I mean, she had so many come in, I mean, tremendous. But she finally got smart, I think, and said, okay, mammals, let somebody else do that. And so she just does birds. So she brought 2 birds this morning, and she's a nonprofit lady, lives, you know, out in the woods, because when she rehabs a lot of these birds, she has to give them places to go let them go, whether it's a robin to a bald eagle to her 2 visitors today that she's had for quite a while. So she's an excellent speaker. It's funny because both of the birds that she has weighs more than she does. So she's very strong. So I'm going to turn it over to Lynn, and she'll have plenty of time for questions. Okay, Lynn? You'll see why the sheet is down here on the floor.
And I have to apologize a little bit, just because, I don't give programs in the summer, it's too hot for the birds to get them out. And so I'm just beginning, the fall programs, and so it can be a little bit of a rodeo when the guys are getting back into sync with everything. As Alan said, I do bird rehabilitation now, everything from hummingbirds up to bald eagles, any kind of wild birds. And I'm located west of Bentonville, south of Gravel area. In order to do bird rehabilitation, I have to have a federal permit. And actually I have two permits. One is for rehabilitation, the other one is for education. And I'll explain those in just a little bit, but just a little bit of history about wild bird rehab and us in the United States. Originally, when we started this country, they said originally, anything that is not specifically mentioned in the Constitution automatically is every state's responsibility. And of course, nowhere in the Constitution does it say anything about wildlife. And so all of the wildlife, mammals and birds and reptiles and everything, fell under state jurisdiction, every state. Now, of course, when you think about the 1700s, 1800s, into the beginning of the 1900s, taking care of wildlife meant something entirely different back then than it does now. And back then, we could take care of wildlife. We were building states and cities and railroads, and the only good wildlife was dead wildlife. And we did that very, very well. Anyway, some states had no rules at all. Some states did some minimal try to protect stuff. Some states paid you a bounty for almost any wild thing you could bring in dead, So every state was entirely different as to how it managed the wildlife within its borders. It wasn't until the middle of the 1900s, and I say that like it was so long ago. But it wasn't until in the 40s, 50s, we began to see that there was a decline, and especially among the birds. And with a little bit of research, of course, we figured out that part of the problems that birds have when it comes to regulation is, remember, every state was doing entirely their own thing, and every state was entirely different from any other state. The problem with birds is that they won't stay in their state. Birds migrate. And birds that migrate found that the chances of flying over a state where it was legal to be blown out of the air were pretty good, And so, in 1973, there were a few other specific laws before that, but in 1973, which for those of you who are my age, that was the 70s is when we passed all of our environmentally significant legislation. Passed the Migratory Bird Act. The Migratory Bird Act says that it is illegal to kill, to hurt, to keep or to keep any part of any native wild bird. The federal government felt like, I mean, for good reason, when it came to birds, you can't have 50 different laws in 50 different states. It would be more advantageous to the bird to have one law over the entire United States. And that's what the Migratory Bird Act does. In the United States, you cannot kill, hurt, keep, or keep any part of any native wild bird. Now, of course, there are exceptions. Number one, and the one that most people would be familiar with, is if it has a season or a bag limit. In other words, that's the reason we can hunt turkey and geese and ducks, and dove, and if it has a season and bag limit. The other is that the federal government doesn't care what you do to a starling, a pigeon, or an English sparrow. They truly don't care. And it's not because they don't like them. It's because, and of course, here I think I'm probably preaching to the choir, but just in case there's somebody in here that doesn't know, everybody knows pigeons. English sparrows, English sparrows are hopping around in the Walmart parking lot. Starlings are hopping around in the Sonic parking lot. They're blackbirds with a short tail. The reason that the federal government doesn't care is because those three species that are everywhere, I mean, everywhere, are not native to the United States. We brought pigeons here, starlings, and English sparrows. Guess where they came from? Actually, starlings have kind of an interest. They're blackbirds, like I said, they have kind of short tails. We know exactly when the starlings came. There was a guy in New York City who thought it would be really cool to have representatives of every bird that Shakespeare mentioned in any of his stories, in any of his plays, flying free in Central Park in New York City. And this was the 1890s. I used to know the exact year, but I've forgotten. This was the 1890s. So he went to England, got a whole bunch of stuff, and brought it back and let him go. Now, like nightingales and starlings, Usually, almost always, if you take a species out of their normal habitat, move them halfway across the world and just kind of let them go, they're not going to last long. Can't find food, many predators, blah, blah, blah. Starlings, however, I think maybe there were 6 pair, if I'm not mistaken, that he released in Central Park. That was the 1890s. 50 years later, they were up and down the East Coast. By the 1960s, 70 years later, they were in Little Rock. 10 years after that, they were in California. So, they just took over. English sparrows kind of did the same thing, pigeons kind of did the same thing. But they didn't come over all in one little bunch. Anyway, I digress. So, in order for me to do rehab, because you can't keep a wild bird, I have to have a special permit to do bird rehabilitation. And that permit allows me to keep any bird for up to 6 months for purposes of rehabilitation. I have another permit, permanent possession for educational purposes permit, that allows me to keep a small number of birds if I use them for education. And so the birds you're going to meet today fall under that category. Both the birds today have been doing this for years and years and years, giving programs. I have a raptor and a raptor wannabe. In a minute. Now, of course, this is a barred owl. I think a lot of you are familiar with barred owls. Barred owls are found in the woods. You're not gonna find them in open areas. You're just not. Because great horned owls eat them. And so they stay in the woods. You know, they're perfectly fine with that. Barred owls are actually little tiny owls covered in a whole bunch of really fluffy feathers. So they look fairly big. Actually, this is just a skinny little owl covered in a whole bunch of really fluffy feathers. Barred owls out in the wild average pound, a pound and a half. Now Sydney here has been with me for 8 or 9 years now, and has not missed a meal at that time. So she's a little bit quirky for a barred owl, but she's like 2 pounds, you know. So anyway, as I say, this is a raptor, and most people, if they were asked to define a raptor, would tell you that a raptor kills and eats live food. You know, they kill stuff and eat it. But actually, that's only part of the definition, because if that was the only definition of a raptor, a robin out here in the grass pulling up an earthworm and swallowing it technically would be a raptor. They're killing live prey. What makes a raptor is that they kill live food with their talons. That's what makes a raptor a raptor. So, owls, hawks, eagles, falcons, all of them. This is the weapon of choice. They're not gonna land on the ground and start beaking something to death. You know, they're,
Think about it.
no. And no, and actually, you know, people have said, aren't you afraid that Sydney's gonna bite? But they don't think to bite, because their beak is not a weapon. Their beak is the equivalent to us of a knife and fork. They kill stuff with their talons, and then they make it into smaller pieces with their beak, rip it up into littler pieces to swallow it. So, so biting is not something that they really kind of think about as far as defense. This is offense and defense, you know. So, you know, if you should ever come across one of these birds and get them cornered, they're going to do everything they can to protect themselves. But if you were being cornered by a great big giant something or the other, and in one hand you had your knife and fork, and in another hand you had a .357, this is what they're gonna get you with. You know, that's what you have to be scared of, rightfully so. These talons are attached to some of the strongest muscles in this bird's body. When they grab something, it has been grabbed and will remain grabbed. Now, they do use their beak a lot of times. They'll grab, catch, and depending on the size of the prey, they either crush it or get it caught, and then sometimes, because they're very good at this, they will bite it right at the base of the neck, and that kills it. You know, if they don't kill it on the initial grab, sometimes they can get it that way. But really being caught by a raptor and killed is not the worst thing in the world, just because under normal circumstances, it's, wait, is there, and then they're dead. You know, I mean, there's no suffering involved, you know, most of the time when they're caught by an Now, a lot of you are familiar with barred owls know that these are very vocal birds. Because they live in the woods, it's hard to communicate with one another by sight. Too many trees, you know? So they use sound. And they have all kinds of different sounds that they use. And how many people in here have called in barred owls? It's really, really cool thing to do. They have lots of different sounds that they make, but the one that can kind of get them going is called their territory call. And that's the one that they say sounds like, who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? Now, what it sounds like in owl, and I am not the best owl caller in the world, but what it sounds like in barred owl is ow, whoop, whoop, ow, whoop, whoop, ah. And who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? That's what it sounds like. And what's really cool is that if you go out in the woods, again, they're only found in the woods. You go out in the woods, it has to be dark, you have to be quiet, not too much light. If you do that call, if there's any barred owls around, they will answer you. They're real curious little birds. Sometimes not only will they answer you, they'll fly to a tree close to where you're at, and they'll look at you and talk to you. And at that point, they know you're not an owl. And I don't really understand the thinking, but they will talk to you. Now, what's really, and the good thing about talking to these barred owls is because they're such curious little birds, you don't have to be perfect. Now, you gotta be pretty good, but you don't have to be perfect. If you're pretty much along the lines of what sounds like a call, a barred owl territory call, somebody's gonna answer you if they're out there. So, you know, that's a really fun thing to do. Now, full disclosure, you can get an app on your phone that will do the same thing, but you know, it's not quite the same thing as talking to yourself, you know. Owls are amazing birds. Not only do they have fantastic night vision, but they also have fantastic hearing. Most people are not aware that owls, all of the owls, not just barred owls, use their hearing just as much as they use their eyesight. Part of the problem is, for the owls, is that they are working in the dark. Now, those of you, you know, when you're outside, when it's like almost dark, the kind of dark where you can still see kind of, but if you were to go in the house and look out the window, it would look like totally black kind of stuff. But when you're outside, you can kind of see, because technically in the world of mammals and birds, we have kind of middle night vision. We don't have no night vision. We can kind of see. It has to get really, really, really dark for us not to be able to see at all. You're going to notice two things when it gets really, really dark. Number one, everything turns to black and white and gray. You lose color. The other is it's hard to see distance at night. And even though owls have fantastic night vision, they really kind of have those two parameters they have to work around also. They're seeing in black and white and gray. They're not seeing in color. What happens is you see at the back of our eyes, all of us, including her, you have rods and cones. Rods are for pulling in light. Cones are for seeing color. And when it gets really dark, the rods, the ones that are trying to capture as much light as they can, are just working overtime back there in the back of your eyes, and the cones have to kind of sit back and say, okay, you know, have at it. And so we don't see color. They don't see color when it's dark. But they also can't see distance, even with fantastic, they can see further than we can, but they still can't see distance. So, an owl's ears are right back here. Now, I can't show you her ears because, number one, they don't have any outsides, you know, it's just the hole. And number two, too many feathers. But, stay back to business there. What's amazing is this facial disc around the eyes. When sound hits this flat face, the way the feathers are arranged on the facial disc, they act just like a satellite dish, and they funnel all the noise right back to her ears. An owl can hear a mouse squeak in the grass a half a mile away. And so what they do at night is they will sit in a tree and listen. And when they hear a squeaking or a rustling or something that sounds potentially edible, they will fly to a tree close to where they heard the sound. Then they use their terrific night vision to actually pinpoint it on the ground. But their hearing is, like I say, is just as important as their eyesight for all the owls. All the owls are that way. There you go. Okay. Sydney, just a little bit of history on Sydney. I've had her for, actually, I think it's been more like 12 years now. She came in, she was hit by a car on the interstate, which is fairly common as far as my line of work goes. Probably 85% of the raptors that I get in have been hit by cars. It broke her elbow. Well, it broke the bone really close to the elbow. And for any of you who've had that kind of an injury, you know joints are very difficult to heal back to totally normal. And sure enough, her elbow is frozen. And so she can't extend one wing. The elbow is stuck there. So she doesn't fly with the flip, actually.
Worth a hoot?
Yeah, with the hoop. Yeah. And so that's why she's been with me, and it has been, yes, it has been 12 years now. And so I don't really know how old she is because she came in as an adult. And a whole lot of these birds, of the raptors, once they get past juvenile plumage that they can keep for a year, once they get past that, it's a little hard to tell age after that. So, she's getting a little older. You all probably can't see it, but up close and personal, she's getting a little bit of cataract in one eye, you know, so I know she's an older bird. Now, one of the things that a lot of people think is that owls can turn their head all the way around, and they can't do that. You know, when you think about it, and so many people are just convinced that they can, but when you think about it, if you're looking straight ahead, what adaptative advantage would you receive from turning your head all the way around looking straight ahead again? That's just showing off. They don't need to do that. They're way too cool to have to do that. But they can turn their head more than halfway around, 230 degrees, something like that. Part of the reason is that they have huge, huge eyeballs. We're only seeing part of her eyeballs. And they actually take up so much room in an owl's head, this is all the owls, that they actually touch in the middle. There's no room in an owl's head for eye muscles. Now, we have eye muscles, which means that we can move our eyeballs around. They can't do that. Their eyes are just stuck straight in. So, we wanna see behind us, you turn your head, you turn your eyes. They can't do the eyes thing, so they have to be able to turn their head further. Now, there are other physiological things about owls that, one thing that people probably would never think about is that along your neck you have your carotid arteries that run up and down inside your neck. If we were able, now they have more vertebra right up here in their neck area so that they can move more. But even if we had that available, if you were to turn your head halfway around, this carotid artery would snap, because it fits right there. What they found with owls, all the owls have floppy carotid arteries. So that when they turn, the carotids are loose enough that they can turn with the whole body without snapping. So it works for them. Like I say, they do have more vertebra so that right in their neck area, so they can turn further than we can just because of that. Anybody got any questions?
What's the typical lifespan of a barred owl?
Well, for all of the raptors, basically the bigger the bird, the longer they live. Barred owls are really not all that big, but they will live 20 years, 25.
What do you feed?
She eats dead mice at my house. Everybody at all the birds at my house eat dead mice. I don't feed live mice, with exceptions. Rehab birds that are sick or broken, usually can't catch a live mouse. And the birds that have been in captivity for so many years would not jump right. If I were to let a mouse go in her pen, it'd be like, oh, well, looky there. And basically I'd have mice running all over if I were to feed them to these guys. So, the only time I feed live mice is this time of year, or a little earlier, when I get in baby raptors of any kind. Before they can be released, they have to go to mouse school. They have to have an idea about how to catch live food, before I release them. So they get fed live mice, but everybody else eats dead stuff.
Do you raise mice?
No, I tried that once. I go through, well, right now I'm feeding 20 or 25 small rats and 10 mice a day. And you just can't raise that many. I ordered them off the internet. Frozen mice.
Lynn, how much do you spend a month on mice and rats?
Depending on the time of year, anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a month on just mice and rats.
How much does
she eat a day?
She eats 2 mice.
2 mice.
Mhm.
Can you speak, for people that don't know, upon the sound of their flight?
Oh, well, yes. One of the things about owls and when they're hunting at night, because now they're hunting animals that are usually out at night. Well, they have to be out at night in order for these guys to see them. And so those animals that are out at night usually have a pretty good awareness of what's going on around them. They have to be able to sneak up. And what all the owls can fly silently. You never hear them. And the reason for that, okay, are you gonna let me do this? No. Come here. Look, we're gonna do this. Her primaries, the biggest flight feathers, Okay, this is what comes from her sitting for 3 months and not having to do this. The reason they can do that is because on the back side of every primary, the feathers, the edge of the feathers are kind of serrated. And so air can pass through between those serrations and they make absolutely no noise at all when they fly. I've got some great big flight pens. And when I have owls in there, I can go in and, you know, the owls are looking at me at the back of the flight pen and I'll go in, put down mice and raise my head and all the owls are at the other end and I never heard them, you know, pass over me. You know, like 3 or 4 feet over my head and I won't hear it. But they are capable of flying absolutely silently. You will never hear them unless they want to be heard.
So if we see a dead raptor, we're going down I-44, and we see a dead raptor or a dead, we happen to hit each other, then what is the policy? Do we take it to the vet, does that take it to you, or how do we save the bird?
And of course, I am looking, this is Missouri. I know Arkansas, you know, so, but,
Oklahoma.
This is Oklahoma.
oh, sorry. I'm out of state. I know this is my own state. I'm from state, so I don't know. But, number one, I can tell you, taking them to the vet isn't gonna do any good, because most vets are gonna say, oh, no. You know, don't wanna deal with that. Number one, most vets don't deal with birds. Number two, most vets, know that there's a whole lot of laws and regulations regulating these birds and don't want to get caught in that, and so they will tell you no. In Arkansas, you can call the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission on their hotline number, and they have a list of all the bird rehabilitators in the state and can find you the closest one.
Okay.
I would assume that in Oklahoma, you could do relatively the same thing. You know, go at it from that direction. You can probably Google it too, but, you know. And every state is different as far as, you know, like with a lot of laws, your state law can't be looser, but it can be more restrictive. And so, I know Missouri is really, really restrictive about who can and can't, you know. But anyway, I would do that rather than take it to a vet. It's probably not gonna be good. Anybody else have any questions about Sydney here?
Grip string.
Yeah, I'm sorry?
Grip string. For, I mean, varies between owl.
Yeah, and I used to know numbers. I've forgotten numbers.
I'll look it up.
But great horned owls are the ones that have the phenomenal grip strength. They can, I just don't remember the numbers, but it is absolutely phenomenal. These guys are good great horned owls compared to anybody else, red tails. I mean, the only thing more would be eagles.
2 questions. So, does your facility do tours or no?
No, I'm more of a hospital than I am a zoo. And most of the birds that are with me are there trying to get better, and people are stressful to these birds, so, no.
And then we are launching our Young Birders Club for our young adults who are here. And is there a way that, or is there a place or your place that we could get owl poop to dissect?
Oh, no, you don't, you sure don't want the poop.
No, under the regurgitation.
Yeah, right. You're not going to get much from.
Yeah, there you go. Is
But,
that something that you
well, I
collect or
don't
keep?
usually keep them, but.
That would be a cool project.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we would know the owl it came from.
Actually, if it did, I would probably say great horn pellets, because they're bigger.
You're bigger.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if you stay some pellets, and I can grab them and bring them up here sometime, if you want to do that.
That would be great. That'd be a good project for the
Yeah,
kids.
it would.
So, the next bird I've got, is is our raptor wannabe.
Once you do it, I remind you, if you find a dead hawk or an owl or anything on the road, and you think this would be cool, or a woodpecker or whatever, I'll take it to a taxidermist and get it mounted. Taxidermists say, get the heck out of here, because they know they cannot do that. It's gotta be a mammal that has a hunting season on it, and then they can do that. But if you just find something that's dead, even though it's in pristine condition, you know, you can't have any part of it. I did a lot of eagle stuff. I even had an eagle feather for a while. You know, the eagle flew and I had the feather, and I kept it for a long time. And even being a ranger, I even got nervous and went and buried it one time. Because, I mean, it's very, very restrictive. I mean, very tough. So if you see something down the road, you think, ought to get that mounted or whatever. Now, a mammal, a raccoon, an opossum, a nine-banded armadillo, if you want to get them mounted. And most taxidermists won't do nine-banded armadillos. You know why? Because they can contract leprosy. That's how we came up with a cure for humans, leprosy, is by studying on nine-banded armadillo. So most of them won't even do that. Okay, here's.
Yeah, and the feds really, the bigger the bird, the feds truly don't have any kind of sense of humor when it comes to regulations. Okay. This is Igor. And Igor is a turkey vulture. And as I say, Igor is a raptor wannabe. Everybody groups them together with all the rest of the raptors. They're great big birds. But vultures don't kill anything. Here, you're gonna have to turn around. There you go. There you go.
Thanks for the painting.
Turkey vultures don't kill anything. And as a matter of fact, if you look at his feet, he has no talons. He has great big turkey feet, is what he has. They're wonderful for holding stuff down while you're ripping it up, but killing stuff, no. They truly, turkey vultures, truly don't kill anything. And he's a turkey vulture because he's got a red head. The reason that they don't kill it, the reason I can say for sure that they don't kill anything is because when you see lots of vultures way up there soaring around, they are not looking for food. They are smelling for food. And there we go. And you can see that when you look at his face in profile. His nostrils are so big, you can see through to the other side. And that's because their sense of smell is so important to them. Their nostrils are huge. A lot of times, people couldn't believe for a long time that that's how they found their food, but they've done experiments with wild vultures. I think they were using lambs, but they would kill a lamb and then put it under a shelter where it couldn't be seen from above. The first day they killed the lamb, they killed a lamb. Nothing happened. The second day, nothing happened. Third day, vultures were everywhere. And it's because they're smelling the dead stuff. You see, having good eyesight doesn't help you much when you're a vulture because hawks and owls, when they are looking for prey, they're not looking for fuzzy. What they're looking for is movement. If the little furry thing never moved, they'd never find it. Of course, when you only eat dead stuff, it's not moving. So you've got to find a different way to find the dead stuff, and so they do it by smell. As a matter of fact, now we have two kinds of vultures. The turkey vulture is by far the most common. Igor here, just a little history on him. He is 25. this year, and I have had him since he was a day-old chick. A fisherman on Beaver Lake found him just wandering on the shoreline and picked him up and brought him to me. But, so he's kind of been there and done that. Turkey vultures, you know, have the naked head, but, you know, once you see them up close, it's really more of a buzz cut kind of thing going on. They don't have regular feathers on their head just because when you spend a lot of your time with your head inside a dead possum, you know, it gunks up your head, you know, and it's hard to keep those feathers clean when that's your job. And keeping feathers clean for any bird is the most important thing. Because, you know, your feathers are your transportation, they're your insulation, they're everything, you know. So keeping clean, and so they just evolved so where they lost those feathers so they don't have to worry about keeping them clean. They used to be used quite a bit because of their sense of smell. When they were first putting in a pipeline, how many years back in the 30s and 40s, when they were first running pipelines across Canada, you know, with gas, that they can't put underground, because up north, you know, what with the permafrost and stuff, they can't put stuff underground. They had to have people constantly, because this is running across Canada, they had to have people constantly checking those pipelines for leaks. And they finally figured out how to, instead of hundreds of people checking all of these pipelines, hundreds of miles of pipelines, they had two guys in a pickup watching for vultures. What they did was they started putting, ethyl mercaptan is the name of the molecule that smells sulfurish, kind of like dead. You know, that they put in gas so you know you got a gas leak. They put that in the gas as it was coming through Canada, and because it smells like dead stuff, they would just watch the turkey vultures. And if they had the vultures all centering on one area, they knew they had a leak, and then they could go fix that. Now today everything is, you know, computerized, and they don't need them anymore. But I mean, so you're out of a job. But they really were used quite a bit for that kind of thing. Because they don't have the protection, i.e. the talons, that the raptors have, vultures have another way of protecting themselves that kind of goes along with their job. If you scare your turkey vulture, he will throw up all over you. Yeah. And of course, you know, knowing what vultures eat, I can attest to the fact that vulture vomit is truly bad stuff. You know? And what's great about Igor here, of course, is that having grown up with people and everything, I'm not sure whether Igor thinks he's a person or he thinks I'm a vulture, but he's pretty happy in front of a crowd, so we don't have to worry about it. Any questions?
What do you feed Igor?
He gets, everybody at my house gets dead mice.
Do you have to let the mice comment though before you give them?
No, they're dead. And, I mean, he's learned, you know, he's been eating these for his whole life,
I
so.
know they eat a lot of meat.
Right.
They don't smell bad.
It doesn't have to put in your way.
Are there different sizes?
Well, the turkey vulture is by far the most common. There are also black vultures. Now, if you Black vultures, number one, have a black head instead of a red head. They're a little bit smaller. Their shape is a little bit different. But the big difference between turkey vultures and black vultures is that black vultures, if it's close to dead, that's close enough. If you see them up close, you can really tell the difference. Black vultures don't have these great big nostrils. They just have the slits like regular birds do. Scientists think that black vultures find their food by following turkey vultures around. But black vultures can be a real problem. Ranchers have a huge problem where turkey vultures are present. I mean, where black vultures are present. Because they'll eat newborn calves. You know, as soon as they're born, before they can stand up, they'll sit around and wait on newborn calves. And so they will give out, the state will give out what are called depredation permits, so that you can shoot black vultures, you know, because they can just wreak havoc. And the only problem with that is, of course, most people really don't know the difference. You know, so a lot of turkey vultures that truly are just sitting there minding their own business, you know, end up getting shot too. But black vultures just, you get a bunch of black vultures together and it's more like gang activity going on. The Bull Shoals Dam, they had black vultures move in at the Bull Shoals Dam, would perch on top of the dam. The vulture poop will eat away the cement. They were tearing up the dam. When they land on your house, if you get a bunch of black vultures together and they land on your house, they will do all kinds of damage. I've had people call and say, we were on vacation and we came home and we've got all these birds sitting across the eave of the roof, and that have like dismantled the gas grill and taken out all the screens and, you know, ruined everything that was around the house. Black turkey vultures don't do that, but black vultures do. So there is a difference.
How long can they live?
Because he's pretty big, he can live longer than a barred owl. They used to say 30, 35 years. And so I'm thinking, oh, Igor, the love of my life. You're past middle age. I had somebody tell me that at some zoo, they were, I think in Kansas, there is a turkey vulture that was 45. So I am assuming that Igor is going to make it for that. But 30, 35 years is usually.
How much does Igor weigh?
He's the heaviest of all of them. And so, of course, he sinks as I talk. But he is 4 or 5 pounds. It doesn't sound like a lot, but he's much heavier. A great horned owl, which is a big bird, is like 3 pounds, you know.
Are they singular or do they hunt in flocks or?
Well, of course, they're not hunting, but they will, you know,
Yeah.
they'll all, you see, and the reason you'll see a bunch of them also is because these are masters of the thermal. Oops, I'm sorry. They will find rising air and just soar all day and never flash, you know, until they have to find another thermal to ride on. But while they're doing that, they are smelling. But one of the reasons you'll see a bunch of them together is because they are finding a thermal that's good, you know, so you'll see more of them. And they roost at night together, so.
Do the black ones and do they intermingle?
That's okay. That's okay. The one thing he, no, I'm sitting down.
Oh, bothering you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the only time he's ever thrown up in front of a crowd was somebody walked right behind him. Anyway, I realize I've used it. Anybody got any more questions?
I have one.
How do they work, do the mice and rats come to you? And will you pose it in a stack or?
Well, in Ziploc bags.
Individually?
Yeah.
Do the turkey buzzards and the black ones intermingle? Do they hunt together or do they hang together?
Well, they say that black vultures find their food by following the
Right.
turkey vultures around, and so that where you find one, you may find the other. Usually, black vultures roost at night
Hang
by
out.
themselves, and
Okay.
turkey vultures another. But not always. Sometimes they they don't mind one another's company.
Okay.
We have,
They cool off, like, I've heard that the black ones go down their legs with like, it's like white.
They
When it
pee down
cools
their
off,
legs. They all
yeah,
do.
to cool
Yeah.
off.
They pee down their legs. That's why, his anklets, right here, for he and any vulture, you have to put snap anklets on. They can't wear them all the time. Most of the birds wear their anklets all the time, and you just add the leash when you get ready to go. Vultures, you can't do that because they pee down their legs to cool off.
really?
Yeah. Because you
I was just gonna say, a few years ago, my wife went outside and saw a black vulture flew into a transformer. Fell to the ground, and I went and grabbed it, and then, I think the next day we took it down to Wild Heart Ranch in Claremore, Oklahoma, and, it turned out to be fine. We don't know if it became a ground vulture or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
We didn't ever get a final update.
That
I
must
asked
do.
about it.
Did it just fly into the transformer? Did it go, or
Yes.
did, oh, it
She said it had electricity all around it, like,
did? Wow.
and it survived.
I saw that happen to a squirrel one time.
Right, a squirrel.
Lynn, will you remind them that we don't have any buzzards in North America?
True. We do not have a buzzard in North America. This is a turkey vulture. The reason that most people call them buzzards is because way back in the 1600s, when the very first European English settlers were coming to this country, in England, they have no vultures. And so they saw these great big birds flying around, and they figured it was some new species of hawk. But in England, they call their big hawks buzzards. And so they just started calling them buzzards. And so everybody else started calling them buzzards. But these are not buzzards. These are vultures.
And they have state and federal protection.
They are, yeah,
But
and
they're
they are
migratory.
a native species, and they are protected.
Do you get any type of federal or, state aid?
No, I work off donations. They don't, the state doesn't provide any, well, neither the state nor actually, the feds charge me $50 for my permit.
So do they migrate?
Some of them do, some of them will move a little bit. It's not a huge migration, they're not going to South America or anything. Some of them stay here, some of them will go down South Arkansas, South Arkansas, but they really don't, okay.
When it gets really bitter cold for a long time, you'll notice that 70 or 80% of them will go south. Maybe 100 miles, maybe 200 miles.
Get
If
out
it
of
warms
the-
up again, they come right back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're not really spending,
Right.
you know.
Okay, Lynn,
they're not
thank you.
spenders. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't want to get too close, Lynn, 'cause I don't want to get thrown up on. So most animal rehabs, most Audubon chapters, we're all nonprofit, so on behalf of our chapter, we have a nice donation to Morning Star, to Lynn, when she puts away the turkey vulture. Here. I was like, I didn't want to approach.
Yeah, right.
Thank you so much. One of our long-term goals in the area is to have a bird rehab. I had estimated that was a 5-year goal, but based on the activity and the interest, and I bet you we would never run out of volunteers to work at a bird rehab. I think that will happen sooner in this area. And Lynn is a wonderful mentor for that too, to get that started, because there are a lot of regulations. Thank you so much. You sure are bringing your birds out. It's prize time. to leave early, so can you watch those tickets for me? So
There's one extra ticket in there that's kinda got an extra rip, so the number wouldn't have been, it's Rex. It was on the number, but he wanted a new one.
But if it wins, I still want double my chance.
No.
I got two.
You just need one.
I won't do.
Okay.
Is it mine?
950062.
60.
There you go. There you go.
What's her name? Name.
Thank you.
Kim. What's her name?
No, we know what it is.
Your name is Carol. Carol Bishop is our lucky winner. All right. Well, we had a great turnout. I hope to see you all at Harbor Village next month for the potluck, for, you know, a time to get to know each other. We'll have some fun things to do. We might have some fun bird games. There's a personality bird game that our secretary has been working on where, you know, you kind of pick what bird matches your personality. I've already been told I'm a chickadee. But if you read about the birds' personalities, and we might have some fun with that. We'll have some good food. We'll learn a little bit about community science. And for those of you who are actually members, we need you there because we're approving our bylaws and our budget for next year. So that'll all be emailed to you in advance of you to review. And meeting is adjourned. If I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Second, yes, and birdability tomorrow, please. Who seconded the adjournment? Thank you.
Alec.
All of me.
Alec did.
Yeah. And birdability and Bluebird Box is tomorrow, 9 a.m. for East State Park. So it's gonna be fun. Amanda Markey, the park ranger, she's gonna be talking about the little flora and fauna, and we're gonna do the training for Bluebird Boxes and birdability. It'll be fun. It's a nice morning. All right, thank you.